Today, we're going to take this Spyderco Para 3, a regular plain Jane version, and we're going to mod it. I love this knife. I use it all the time. It's a great tool. And we're going to turn it into this, the Blackout, Chaotic Pandemic, Plague, Flytanium Para 3. But how do we get from that to that? Well, that is what we're going to figure out in this episode of Xero Style. I am your host, Xero, the cyberspace hero, here to vlog this week about the trials and tribulations of modding the Spyderco Para 3. It's not impossible, but it's not easy either, and I thought I'd just take you down the trip with me. Some of the footage isn't the best, I'm sorry, but I tried. I am a proud member of the Plague Squad, so I'm super hyped to have this ultra custom knife to just represent a little harder than I normally do on my lanyard game for the Plague Squad. You're going to need some tools for this mod. I suggest a pinning tray. You're going to need some tweezers, side cutters or scissors, some Torx bits, drivers, paracord, and optionally a sharpening system. Of course, you're also going to need the blacked out hardware and blacked out backspacer from Pacific Suns. The main event, the Chaotic Pandemic Flytanium Para 3 Plague Scales. It's milled pattern with the pandemic skulls and then clay lasered the same pattern offset the other direction on top of them. Man, are these things amazing. Full titanium mill. These are the skinny scale style here. You can see the grip is a little bit different to make them more ergonomic. We shall see. Special shout out to Clay, the fur bag. If you're watching, buddy, thank you so much for the Christmas gift. You know what it is. It means so much to me, buddy, and I really appreciate it. Merry Christmas. Alright, first of all, we're going to snip off our old lanyard. Rip, set this guy aside. The skull is going to be used later. Alright, grab your bit driver and remove the screws from the pocket clip. Just one at a time, screw them all out, and then once you've got them, lift them all out in one shot and set them off to the side. This is the tricky bit, man. Popping the Loctite for the first time. You really have to push down very hard. I started with the pivot screw first, and then I moved back to the backspacer here. Really add a lot of downward pressure as you pop that the first time. You flip it over here and do the same to the other side. Do you hear that click? Call that the click of doom. I'm going to need to grab another bit and driver and use one of them on the stuck spinny side and then the other driver on the one that is rotating. Pull the screw out as much as you can, flip it over, use your finger to brace it, unscrew it the rest of the way. Can't get it out, give it a little tap. Try and tap this one out the backside, and if you see the center post here spinning, pull the scales apart a little bit and boom, out will fall your second screw as well as the devil's backspacer. Move your tools and organize a little bit. Now we're just going to lightly put some pressure here and separate the scale and rotate it 90 degrees. We'll reveal the blade along with two washers, the backstop, and the pivot collar. Move the blade out of the way, man, because this next part sucks. You need to work back and forth to try and pull this lanyard tube out. Trying to remove this is really tricky. I don't really know what to say, and I'm sorry I couldn't get it on camera. Look at this Jurassic Park shake. Work it back and forth as much as you can until you're able to just sort of pop one side of it free. Once you've split them in half, take your one scale and give it some flex, and then take a set of tweezers or a flat screwdriver, stick it between the scale and the liner, and it should just pop right out. Set your liner aside. We'll take a peek here at the scale. Pretty gross and haggard. Toss that aside. Then we're going to have to move back on here to this terrible lanyard tube. Once again, stick your tool between the liner and the scale. Separate them a little bit and stick your fingers between. Then sort of work back and forth, up and down, and try and separate the liner from the scale. Eventually, with enough torque, you can pop it right off. If you're lucky, the tube will come out, but if you're me, it won't. So we're going to have to use these specialty tools that I got right here to just pry this guy out as hard as I can. There it is, finally separated. Here's our other haggard, nasty looking scale. Toss that aside and grab our new flytanium scales. The liner should just drop right in perfectly, no press fitting or anything, smooth as butter. And now it's time to clean. Take some isopropyl alcohol, pour it onto a hank or some kind of microfiber cloth, and give everything a good cleaning. Do the liners, do the blade, make sure you get any kind of grease off of the blade itself so it's nice and shiny and ready to go. This is also the perfect time to sharpen your knife. If you're the kind of person who uses their tool a lot, when it's disassembled, this is the best time to redo your edge or just put a new little sharpening job on it. This is not going to be an explanation of how to sharpen or even how I sharpen, just I'm throwing it in here because it's what I did. The only advice I'll give you is learn your sharpening system, take your time, give it as many passes as it needs, looking for that burr. I have this little worksharp precision adjust and a little 3D printed stand that helps make it a little bit stabler. I didn't record nearly all of this. This is the very last phase when I'm just hitting it with the diamond plate, trying to just make everything look nice and polished for the very end of the job. So yep, sharpen the blade at this stage while it's all disassembled for optimal comfort for your sharpening experience. Alright, back to the modding. Alright, once your job's done, we have to try and attach this new lanyard tube back into the liner. Pop it in there as best as you can. Then set the liner right into the scale. This is the period where you really need to press fit it in. I found it was easier to do the press fitting job onto the liner with the scale attached, but if you can do it with just the liner, that's fine too. But pop it in there and make sure that it's all flush. Next, we're going to take one of the smaller size screws, insert it, and then gently screw on our new Devil's backspacer. Now, I decided to replace the pocket clip next. I'm not sure this is the best time, but I did it. Grab your tweezers and drop each one of the screws in there, then take your little bit, give it a little turn back and forth until it pops in. Take your time, one screw after another, get them in there, torque them just a tiny little bit till each one of them is into place, and you might even get lucky and perfectly drop one in first try and not even need to use your bit when you get it in there. After that, we're going to grab our scale and liner, line up our holes as best as we possibly can till each of the screws slightly drops in. We're going to grab our bit driver. We're going to start with a little lefty-loosey till they pop into place completely, and then a slight righty-tighty. Little backspin there. Yep, till it pops in, and then righty-tighty, and just a little bit. Don't wrench it down. Just turn it on there. Make sure everything is perfectly aligned. That's why I put the clip on now, because I wanted to be able to see it from the back, make sure our screws were threading properly. And now you can really wrench and get them all tightened in there as best as you can, because you don't want that clip going anywhere. And there it is, our newly attached deep carry clip. Next, we're going to install the backspacer. Do your best to line it up. It will snap into place as you press fit it in there. Make sure that both the backspacer, the lanyard tube are aligned perfectly and snapped flush with the scale and the liner. Very important. Now we get to try and shove these two halves back together. Work it back and forth just like we did the other way, putting even pressure on the lanyard tube itself and just push them together until they're snug. Rotate them a couple degrees, and we're going to grab the alcohol again and clean off these washers. These things are very fragile, so take it easy, take your time. We're only trying to get any kind of junk or old KPL off of them. You don't need to completely buff them. Just get them clean, keep them smooth, and take note of what side is flat and what side has a little raised area on each of them. Now it's time for lube. I'm going to grab some KPL, use whatever you want. A tiny little bit on the inside. That was too much. Tiny little bit. I'm going to drop our screw and scale into place. And then we're going to take our first washer with the flat side down. Align your pivot collar best you can, and then grab your driver and give it a little lefty-loosey till it pops right into place. Then lay everything vertical. Use the bit driver to hold it in place and gently tighten that guy up. You don't want it super snug right now, but you want it tight. push down, and make sure that everything is aligned correctly. Make sure that your washer is not impeding anything. Make sure that everything looks good, is seated properly. Now we're going to take our knife blade, drop it in there into place, squeeze out a little bit more KPL, just rub it around. Grab our other washer, and we're going to put the flat side facing up. And then just give it a little turn to get that KPL lubed in there. Now, you probably should have done this earlier, but I didn't notice how bent that my lock bar was. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to grab a hank, and I'm going to bend against the lock bar more than you normally can. Just try and give it a little bit of extra tension and flexion, and just release that pressure ever so slightly so the lock bar is just a bit smoother. Line your scale back up. Grab our stop pin and align it right here. Now, I like to close the blade. Make sure everything lines up right. Hold down the lock and try and snap the scale and the frame all together. I didn't get it, so I'm going to open the knife slightly and just work it back and forth till everything snaps in snugly. Now, another super duper important phase here is you need to press everything as tight as possible. With that firm pressure still applied, grab your other screw and tighten it up into the devil's backspacer. It doesn't have to be super snug, but tight. Then we're going to open up the knife the rest of the way and grab our second pivot screw, drop it into place here as well. Now, I can't stress enough again how much downward pressure I am applying on the scale as I am tightening up this pivot. Little backspin to make sure it's seated, and then just tighten it up. Flip it over. Once again, I'm going to loosen this slightly first and then see how tight it is. Make sure everything is as tight as possible to the point where you almost can't close the knife. And we're going to come in here and just give it the slightest little backspin to unlock that pivot and make it buttery smooth. Now, it's going to be a little gross at first. You're going to need to work that KPL into place back and forth. This is the time now where we're going to grab our other bit and make sure that our backspacer is super snug and tight in there as well. Tuning Para 3 is just an art form. You have to try different things to get things aligned the way you want. Alright, let's check out our centering. I think that this is looking just about perfect. Alright, awesome. I'm hyped on this. Let's put a lanyard on this thing. Grab your paracord. Here's my trick for getting a bead on. Pull out some of the excess from the middle part and snip it off with your side cutters or scissors. Then roll back the exterior cordage and melt it. This will give you a much finer edge and make it easier for you to go into the bead. Take a good amount of time and round one of them off really nice. Then the other one you can just do the same way, but it doesn't have to be as perfect. Just make sure it's nice and flat. That'll be the one that we start with. Alright, go ahead and feed your end through the lanyard tube to the middle of the paracord. Lay your knife on its spine, and we're going to tie our first snake knot. Wrap it behind, and then the other cord, wrap it around everything else, and back through that same loop. Pull it tight. Becomes one of the Led Zeppelin symbols, and then it's just a matter of getting your knot nice and tight. Use your nails, squeeze it, pull it, pinch it, get everything nice and aligned. We're going to start with our dirty end of the paracord first, and then we'll take our nice smooth end, feed it through the bead, and it should be super easy with that inner cordage pulled out. Now, once again, we're going to tie another snake knot. You don't have to be super tight at this point. Just make sure you do your knot right. Loop one around the other, and then back again and in through its own original loop, making this nice little snake knot. Now, here's where it's important to really pull your knot together as tight as you can do it. Do it to the point where your knuckles crack. Once everything's good, take your side cutters, snip off the excess, leaving just a little bit. We need something to burn. We don't want our knot to come untied here. Snip it off. Now we're going to take our lighter and melt these edges once again. And then you can use a tool like the back of the lighter to just smash that right in there and let the molten paracord do its job. Get it nice and hot till it starts to bubble on the edges, and then just smush it in there. The end, while it's still hot, I like to pinch it just to make a little bit more of a circle shape, And there we have it. Got our lanyard ready to go. Once everything cools down, grab your Sharpie. Just cover those white edges with a little bit of black or whatever color is appropriate for your paracord. And there we have it. That's how I put the lanyard on the Playge Para 3. Alright, I don't normally do cut tests, but I'm gonna. I don't know why. I put the new edge on this blade. I wanted to really test how sharp it was. So here we are. Can you see why I don't normally do cut tests? Because I'm awful. I suck. What kind of knife guy am I? Let's check out the pocket fit. Fits very nice. It's very deep in there. Easy to deploy with that slight little lanyard bead peeking out on the corner. Very nice. Alright, it's time for the sexy B-roll. Let's get up way close and take a look at these scales. The detailing on the back spacer. The titanium skull. The sort of scripted out screw paint job because I suck. The beautiful light bouncing off those pandemic print chaotic skulls. Fuck yes. This is art. Or whatever. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, just because, for fun, because I love this knife, I'm going to do the 10-finger test and see if I can open this knife with every finger on both hands. We'll start with my left hand. I'm going to go with the pinky because it is the trickiest finger. I'm also going to close it two-handed, just, to be sure. Past all the hard fingers. The old thumb. Spidey drop. Switch back to my dominant hand. Thumb. Index. Middle. Ring. And I'm a two-handed cheat on the pinky, just so I get them all. Spidey drop for the 12. Hells yeah. This episode would not be possible if it wasn't for Clay, obviously, and Flytanium, but also for these guys right here. I'm not sure what this type of tweezers is called. You see these little prong tips here? This is what was able to grab onto the lanyard tube and yank it out. And I probably couldn't have actually done it without you. So, shout out to you, tweezers. I don't know if I should tell this or not, but Clay has been hinting to me for over a year that he's been working on Spyderco Para 3 titanium scales. So when they popped up in the group store, I immediately just hit buy, check out now, the super ultra high-end custom ones, and didn't think twice about what the ramifications were and the cost of what my knife was going to be, because this is not a cheap knife to begin with, now with all of these aftermarket parts that I have put onto it. And you know what? I don't care one bit. This is one of my top 5 all-time favorite knives. Pretty much every Wednesday when it's trash night, and it has been nothing short of an amazing tool the whole time that I've had it. So the Spyderco Para 3 is getting a new outfit this week on Xero Style. I also need to shout out Pacific Suns. They're the ones who made this back spacer, who made this deep carry clip, as well as the blacked out hardware that I used to pull this whole thing together. So shout out to you, Pacific Suns on SD. Well, that's it, start to finish, modding my Spyderco Para 3, one of my all-time favorite knives. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like, comment down below what your favorite part of the video was or something that you didn't enjoy and want me to change. If no one has told you today, you are a rad person who deserves love and praise just like everybody else in this world. Get out there today, customize something and make it your own, and I'll see you in the next video. Later on. What are you still doing here? The video is over. Get out of here. Have yourself a wonderful day. Later on.